Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to My Story Talk Show. I am your guest host, Pamela Martin. And first of all, I want to say thank you to Michelle L. Forbes, who is the CEO of My Story Talk Show, for allowing me to be guest host this week. This week, we continue to focus on our mothers. It's our Mothers Month, so we are spending the month talking to mothers about their experience in motherhood. And this week, I am pleased to say, and I'm honored to have a guest, Labriska Phillip from Nevis. Welcome, Labriska, to My Story Talk Show.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Greetings to Michelle, the CEO of My Story Talk Show. Good afternoon to you, Pam. Good afternoon to the listening audience. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon.
Good, great. Yes, to the listening audience, please share the broadcast. We're going to have a very interesting conversation this afternoon, and I believe it's going to be extremely beneficial to many people. Okay, so before we get started, let me read Labriska's bio. She says, "Hi, my name is Labriska Phillip. I'm a cosmetology massage therapist by profession and a proud single mother of 5 daughters. I received my training at the Raphael O. Wheatley Skills Center in St. Thomas and the Holistic Therapy School of Massage in St. Lucia. I've been involved in beauty for over 20 years and self-employed for more than 6 years. I am the proud owner, CEO, head honcho, boss lady of the Oasis Nail and Spa." Is that you, Labriska?
Sounds correct. I like that.
Okay. So, Labriska, you were born in Nevis. You're the daughter of a local preacher. Still continues to preach today.
He's
Like
still
you said,
dead.
you're a beautician, massage therapist, all things beauty. So let's find out a little bit about you first of all. What caused you to get into this area of business? Into the
Well,
beauty?
I I think beauty chose me. So I was 16 years old, finishing up high school. My aunt called one day from St. Thomas saying, "What would you like to do?" And I said, "Well, the only thing I enjoy doing is braiding hair." She said that she knows a place that do training and the courses start in 2 weeks. So I packed my bags and I was off to St. Thomas for 2 years, and that was it. I've never done anything else. I've never been a secretary. I've never been a waitress. I've just embedded myself in everything beauty. After that, after doing hair, I did nails and massage and everything beauty. Everything.
Okay. Okay, so 5 daughters, big business. We also know that you launched a clothing line, 2911, Jeremiah 2911, about a year or so ago. So how do you manage 5 daughters, a business? Also, you work, I understand, contractually with other hotels in St. Kitts and in Nevis. That's a lot to manage, Labriska. How do you balance everything?
Well, honestly, Pam, I like to think of myself as a superwoman. But when it comes to balancing work and family, I feel like that is the area I fail at. Not fail, but it's the hardest for me. And I feel as women, we're supposed to be real and to show, our weaknesses. For me, it is hard to choose between going home early and paying the bills, giving my children the best life possible. So for me to balance it, I make sure I spend lots of time with them. We do lots and lots of fun things whenever I get a break. And I try to put them in tutoring and everything possible. I try to expose them to as many things as possible. If I had it my way, I would like an extra 2 hours in the day, but I don't have that. I try my best, and the Lord will do the rest.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Sounds good. The Lord always helps, right? He always helps. Okay, so let's get into the meat of the conversation today. You had 3 pregnancies,
Ma'am.
fine and well. The 4th pregnancy was twins. This is the pregnancy that we're going to delve into a little bit more deeply today, because we are talking about something that is not often spoken about in the open, much less behind closed doors. We are talking about postpartum depression. And this is something that Labriska, that you had to go through, that you dealt with this fourth pregnancy of twins. So talk us through to the pre-pregnancy, going through pregnancy. Just talk us through the story so we can get an understanding of postpartum depression and some of the elements that are involved with it.
Okay, thank you. So postpartum depression is something I love to talk about. I love to bring awareness to it because when I was going through my struggle, there was nothing in the Caribbean, nowhere around that I could look at as an example of, or like a picture of hope. So for me, I found help on social media and other platforms. So it's a great opportunity for me to share my story about postpartum depression because I've always promised the Lord when He healed me that I would tell everybody about it. So I found out that I was pregnant, but before that, I really was having baby fever and I wanted to try again for a boy because I had 3 girls at the time. So I went to the doctor and he gave me a little help. I took a little bit of hormones for just about a month, and that is why I believe I ended up having twins.
Right.
So once I started on the hormones, I did the test and I realized I was pregnant maybe about 6 weeks later. And from the moment I was pregnant, I felt something was off. I had a lot of cramping and I thought that the pregnancy was actually ectopic. So I visited the doctor and he did an ultrasound and waha, he found out that it was twins. I was nervous. I was scared. I called my mom bawling. I was like, what am I going to do with twins? And my mother said something to me that day that I would always remember. She says, Labriska, take your hand out of God's face right now. She says, don't you want both of your babies? Don't you want twins? Like, how you're going to tell God you don't want His blessings? So I quickly repented, and that is how I started accepting the pregnancy. To be honest, from the time that I found out I was pregnant with twins, I had a lot of anxiety. And looking back at it, I think now that was the beginning of the postpartum depression. I just couldn't word it because I'm not a shy person, so I didn't have the word for what I was feeling. But throughout the pregnancy, I was just anxious.
Okay, I think we're losing the sound, audio. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, go ahead. Sorry. So when you say you were starting to feel anxious, you feel anxious at certain times of the day, or when you were thinking about the pregnancy specifically, or you just felt anxious throughout the whole day?
Well, I started feeling anxious about losing one of the babies. And now I know maybe that was not a healthy thought. But growing up in the Caribbean, we always know that so-and-so is a twin. There was a twin and one died. And I was just anxious about not bringing home both of my babies. And I was just anxious about being in the hospital, having the doctors like judge me, wondering if I could look after 2 babies, just anxious about stuff like that. How am I going to feed them and stuff? I was just anxious about having 2 babies at the same time.
So how did it progress through the pregnancy when you're getting to like month 6, month 7, month 8? How are those feelings of anxiety playing out?
Well, those feelings I played out throughout the pregnancy, but the real depression never came until maybe 5 days after I had the baby. I had the twins, and then it felt like my worst fear was coming true. About a day after the twins were born, I looked down at Gracie, who is the eldest of the twins, and she was yellow. And we found out that she had jaundice, and it was a severe case of jaundice, and she had to be taken to the NICU. And I was just worried. I mean, if she was there for 5 days, the jaundice levels didn't come down, and the jaundice levels didn't come down, and the doctor started talking to me about doing a blood transfusion. And just all of that just made it so anxious. I was so anxious about everything. I was away from home. I was away from my parents. My marriage at the time was on the rocks. I didn't want to bring that in today, but I'm being open. And so I just had a lot of anxiety. I felt like I was kind of alone for a couple of days, and anxiety was real at that point.
Okay, so how long was Gracie in the NICU, and what eventually happened where she came out of the NICU and you were able to take the babies home?
Okay, so Gracie was in the NICU for a total of 5 days, and just like the jaundice went away instantly. I mean, we were praying, we were fasting, and the jaundice went away. And the doctors, just like overnight, it was just a miracle. It just went away. It was like a testimony. And I remember that night I was lying down and I was praying. I was giving thanks, and that's when I knew for sure that something was not right with me.
When you say that something was not right, that's when you knew for sure. What specifically was it that made you confirm that to you?
Well, I had that day just like intrusive thoughts. They were intrusive and they were persistent thoughts. And I was just feeling a lot of anxiety. I couldn't word anxiety because I didn't know what it was. So I was sitting in the hospital Googling a stroke. I thought I was having a heart attack. I didn't know what to name it. I remember when we were leaving to go home, my feet literally felt so heavy. It felt like I was going on a plane. I feel like my bowels were moving. I just had a lot of anxiety, but I couldn't name it at that time. So that's what made me really scared, because I didn't know at the time it was anxiety. I'm not a nervous person. I didn't even know what I was feeling.
Okay, so you get the babies home, you're taking care of the babies. What else? How else did the postpartum, how else did the feelings or the thoughts begin to progress as you are taking care of your babies as a busy mother with 3 other children still to take care of as well?
Okay. So I went home, and that night I called my doctor. I told him something wasn't right with me. And that night he explained to me that I might be having postpartum blues, that it would be about 6 weeks, and that, just kind of just smiled through it. It's very normal and stuff. So I just thought that I needed a night in my bed. I rest in my bed, and I was going to fake it till I make it. The next day I woke up, I was faking it till I make it. I was playing the music, and I was really, really trying my best to fake it. But then it progressed where I started staying up all night. The thoughts would keep me up all night. Some of the thoughts would be like, is God real? And those thoughts would keep me up all night long. I couldn't sleep. And a matter of fact, Pam, I didn't sleep totally for 2 years or so, solely after that. I would fall asleep, but my mind just never rested. It was a very difficult time.
Okay, so when your doctor mentioned postpartum or baby blues, I guess, people call it baby blues, and he said it's about a 6-week process, and then it should just go, everything should just work itself back to normal. After that time period, 6 weeks passed, maybe 7 weeks, maybe 8, and things were not going back to normal. What did you do? What were you thinking then? Did you take any further steps?
Yes. Thank God I'm a talker. So I told my parents, and we started praying. My church family were praying for me. And my mom was so supportive. She was at the house all the time. And I feel really honored because God sheltered me in that period. Because I had the twins, it looked normal for my mother to be sleeping by me and spending so much time with me. But it was so bad that the only times I could feel rest is when I was sleeping literally between my 2 parents, when they were covering me with prayer, one at my head and one at my feet for many, many nights. At this point, I would just like to say thank you to my parents, and I will never, ever, ever, ever be able to repay that. And I always wish that I could give it to my children, that kind of love and the support that I had during that period. And I can honestly say I am where I am today because of that support. I feel that the difference with people who survive like I did and thrive and keep thriving, continue to thrive, is your support system. And I was blessed to have that.
Okay, so you mentioned 2 years. So now we're at 6 weeks, 8 weeks. Your parents are basically sleeping, one at your head, one at your feet, just covering you in prayer, praying over you and believing God for you to come out. So what happened in month 3, month 4, month 5, month 6? How do you manage to keep going through this? Tell us about that journey going through all these months up to 2 years, you say.
Wow, the journey, it was hard. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other, a day at a time, one foot in front of the other, a day at a time. Then I started doing some research, and then I realized I needed to go to therapy. And so I started going to counseling. I started to learn coping mechanisms in how to process my thoughts, coping mechanisms and how to deal with anxiety, find out what anxiety was. And just like that, I took medication, and that is something that was difficult for me because I felt like taking medication was saying that I didn't trust God. And I went on anti-anxiety pills and anti-depression pills. And I would encourage anybody to, if you're going through the struggle, consult your doctor and see what you can help, what can help you. I don't think that we should suffer alone. We should talk to someone and seek help.
Right. So how did you seek help? You said you had therapy. Was it somebody locally? How did you find that person? Did somebody refer you? How did that come about?
Therapy, I was referred to my doctor. I did therapy just using government therapists. They're readily available. She was awesome. She was just helped me to just work through these things, helped me to build my confidence back and stuff like that. Medication was given by my doctor. He was the best. He stayed with me throughout the process. He answered me from surgery. And I just feel like I had really, really good support. I mean, but the days were really dark. The days were dark. I couldn't smile. I couldn't laugh. There was no joy. There was no, there was just a lot of fear. And I just never imagined, I was wondering what my life would be like, you know? I always say that I looked at my life then, like as if I was watching a movie. It looked like I was looking at something and I couldn't see how it was going to end. I couldn't see a future. I had no hope. I just remember asking my doctors, would I ever be able to go back to work? Would it ever get better? Would it? Yeah, it was.
So during this time you were not working?
During the time, I didn't work for a really long time. And even when I went back to work, I struggled for a really long time, a really, really long time. But that was part of my fight. I couldn't die. I couldn't not work. So I went to work and I cried in the bathroom and I washed my face. I'm getting a little bit emotional. I'm sorry thinking about it, but I would cry.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah, but I would just cry. I would tough it out. I would wash my face. I would pray, and I would go back. I am so much tougher for having gone through postpartum depression because I had to fight. I had to fight.
What about you say your parents were a great support. What about your church family or friends? How were people? Did people know about it? I mean, did you tell people? How did they react? How, because you're a bubbly person. I know you. You're bubbly, you're bright, you're chatty. So obviously, you're saying you're in a dark place. You were very, very solemn. You didn't have any joy. You didn't laugh. What about the people around you? Like, did they question? How did you explain it, or did you explain it?
Well, at first, I was embarrassed. I suffered alone and in silence with just my parents for a long time. And I remember the first friend I opened with, I started learning about self-care. So I called my boss and I said I wanted a pedicure. And I was sitting having a pedicure, self-caring, and a friend came in and I told her. And she couldn't see. And that was one thing that has me two ways. One thing, we need to pay attention to a friend. We need to check on them and see who is acting abnormal. I thought, wow, I'm dying inside and the people around me couldn't see. But sometimes I feel like that was God sheltering me too, because you know that the society we live in, some caps don't come off. So now at this end, I'm telling my story and it's kind of diluted. You know, it's kind of diluted. I could just tell it from the standpoint of how good God is. But at that moment, struggling with my thoughts, and if the world knew about it, it would come from a point of I have a mental illness, and that kind of stigma could have never come off. So that is why I want to be open about it, to break the stigma, to just bring it to the forefront, because no one talks about postpartum depression or the struggles of motherhood or all of any of these.
That's very true. You're very brave, and we really appreciate it because we know it was a very, very difficult journey for you.
But I wanted to say, my friends, though, once I started opening up to my friends about it, they were the best. My girlfriends rock. I mean, one of my friends showed me the most love. I mean, the day I told her about it, the next day she came to my house and I was crying and she came in my bed with me and she knows exactly who she is and she cried with me. And she cried with me, and when I cried, she cried, and I cried harder, and she cried harder as well. She had to travel shortly after that, and when she was in the United States on her vacation, she would take time out every night to see how I was doing. A couple of weeks later, when she came back, I was feeling better and I was laughing. And she came on my porch and she told me something. And I started laughing and she laughed with me. She laughed with me and she said to me, "Sis, if you cry, I cry. And when you laugh, I laugh." And my best friend was there. She started helping me with my children. I had another friend, she would come and just take me to the beach and take me out. And that's what I keep saying from this. I had a lot of support, and support is everything.
So how did you still want your other children? So you had three other children. Did they notice that mommy was not herself? How did, when you were, in that condition, you were not functioning properly, did the other three children aware? Did they say, like, "Mommy, what's wrong?" Or did you put on a show and cover it up?
Well, Pam, it was impossible to put on a show. I couldn't put on a show. They definitely knew something was wrong because I spent many nights just locked up in my room, going to the gates of hell, fighting for my sanity, praying all day and all night. So they definitely knew something was wrong. But also, I'm not a private person. I wanted my children to be a part of it. And I brought them through it all the time. And they were the sweetest. They were older, 11, 9 at the time. And so I was able to say to them, "Mommy's not fine. Mommy is going through something." I explained to them what it was. And it was tough. It was tough because I couldn't take care of them properly. And they went to school looking not so pretty sometimes because mommy didn't have the energy to comb the hair. I mean, there were days that I was so embedded in my thoughts that for you to have a conversation with me, you'd have to literally call me back to myself to ask me if I wanted to eat. So they knew something was going on.
Right. And so when did you start to feel more like Labriska? When did you start to really begin to see some light, I guess we could say, at the end of the tunnel? And what steps did you continue to take?
Well, I honestly don't know the day that God healed me. It was just like one day I was sitting there and I realized I was sad just 60% of the day versus the whole 100%. And then I realized I was feeling better 65% of the day. And I realized I would go 2 hours without having any thoughts or anything like that. But the process lasted about 2 years. And at the 2-year mark, I was very nervous to get off medication because I heard all the stories, you'll be addicted or whatever. But 2 years later, I ended with medication, and I ended with therapy, and I heard some scriptures going through the process because I would read a lot and pray a lot. And one of them was Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to give you hope and a future and an expected end. And I just went on a quest to see what was the future that God had for me. And I just started like just doing my best and trying hard, and everything that I am today is because of what I went through with postpartum depression. The worst time of my life became the best time of my life, and the whole process took about 2 years or so.
Okay. So 2 years, you're starting to feel yourself, you're back at work, you're building yourself day by day. What are some of the things that you do to maintain your mental health now?
Well, Pam, I do a lot of things to maintain my mental health. Everybody that knows me knows I'm extra, extra. I take a lot of self-care days. I do my hair, do my makeup. I exercise. I eat well. I strive. But the thing is that overcoming postpartum depression, I'm fearless. I take chances, and I take risks, and I do the most because I have a trust in my Heavenly Father that I didn't have before. I have a trust in my Heavenly Father that I wouldn't have had haven't I ever gone through postpartum depression. So my self-care includes massage days and lunch dates all by myself, and pedicures and all the 9 yards.
Great, great. So we went through a pandemic, or we're still going through a pandemic, but we went through the really core of the pandemic in 2020, going up until 2022. But during that time, when many people had a lot of difficulty with mental health because of being locked down, locked in, cut off from relationships, being able to mingle with family as they wanted to, being able to communicate and touch and feel, which is what we're so used to as human beings. How did you navigate the COVID-19, knowing that you would probably be disconnected somewhat from those persons who you'd come to be your support system and who you'd come to rely on for support to a great extent?
Well, I had lots of anxiety, much like the rest of the world. And one of my biggest anxiety was the fact that I had opened a business. I had a business, and that was my main source of income, and I was just worried about that. What am I going to eat? What am I going to feed my children? And backstory is, I had just finished my massage therapy course, just maybe 5 days, and gotten back to the island before we went into lockdown. I was broke, and I had a lot of anxiety. So I I was nervous, to tell you the truth. But just like most of the world, I guess, for me to keep my mental health, we just connected on the phone. I talked a lot on the phone and cooked a lot, just like the rest of the world.
Yeah, we are.
And yes, but yeah, it was a nerve-wracking
You did
period.
well. I mean, I know, but you didn't ever go back to those heavy feelings. You were delivered from those kind of thoughts, and so you just kind of went through the pandemic, pretty much like all of us went through. Anxious and nervous and concerned. Right? But you didn't ever return
Right.
to
Ever.
that.
No.
Okay.
Because
So you were completely delivered.
yes. So that, I would say, is the power of therapy. So every now and then a thought may pop up in my head. So before therapy, these thoughts that will pop up in my head will make me sad for the whole day. But now I know that thoughts are just thoughts,
Mhm.
and they go away. So they don't spoil my day. And to be honest, I haven't had a thought in forever. Like it's not a part of my life. I've been totally delivered. And my thoughts, some people might think they were weird or not scary. I mean, why I want to bring awareness to postpartum depression is because my therapist told me in the scale of depression, I was on the outside of the park, just looking in, but I was so scared. So that is why I want to bring awareness, because of those women who might have been inside the park or up to pitch. My thoughts were just about the things that I love, the Lord. It was like, if Jesus really loves me, why is there human suffering? And I found out people think about those kind of things every day, but those thoughts just kind of consumed my day. It consumed my mind all day long. So yeah, I just choose to remember, and it's fine.
So talk to us about your relationship with the Lord, because you speak about the Lord a lot. So talk about your relationship with the Lord prior to coming out, being delivered from postpartum depression, and talk about your relationship with the Lord now on the other side.
Well, I've always loved the Lord, and I know that the Lord loves me more than others. I get a lot of backlash for my statements, but I take it from the fact that David was a man after his own heart. I think I'm the female version of David. You could just call me Davisha, the woman after God. So I just always loved the Lord, but going through something so dark and so deep where you couldn't take a pill for it. There's no pill that you could take for joy. There's no pill that you could take for peace. There's nothing. I had to rely solely on God for my healing. So within that point, we became really close. I would talk to him all day. I would have to say, God, take this thought. I say, God, I plead the blood of Jesus. I commend this day into your hands. So our relationship became very, very, very close. It was God and I and God. And up until this day, it remains the same. I mean, I will burst out in praise and thanksgiving at any moment, because I'm just so grateful. I mean, where I am today was nowhere in my visions. When I sat there and thought about my life, when I was watching it in this movie mode and wondering how it would end, the life that I have today was never, ever, ever in my vision. He has blessed me beyond measure. I mean, more than I could ever, 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 ever imagine. And because of that, well, if I knew that then, I would just have gone to postpartum depression with my legs up, because I needed to go through the process.
Yeah. And so you say you never imagined that you would be blessed so much. So I know that even during COVID, you were able to open a new business. You were able to launch a clothing line, Jeremiah 29:11. You were able to move out of your parents' home and have a home of your own with your 5 children. You were able to get a vehicle so that you can cash money. You were able to get a vehicle, cash. So, I mean, it's like from here all the way up to here. You would never imagine.
Oh, for grace to trust God more. Oh, for grace to trust God more. And that is because I am fearless. I take the chances. I trust God with every process of my life. How dare I not trust God, who have healed me with bills? I mean, like those two things, so I just trust God with everything. And he has just said, well done, my good and faithful servant. And I feel like he's just rewarding me for my struggle, honestly. It is, yeah. And I feel like I'm grateful. I am grateful. So maybe I always think maybe the blessings that God has given to me wouldn't be so great for someone else. Maybe they will still think that it's small things because the apartment I have is not my own house. So I think gratitude is much of it. You might say, why are you so excited about living in somebody's apartment or whatever? But I have just a lot of gratitude. I am just grateful, forever grateful.
I know when you first shared your story, which was some time ago, you received or interacted with a lot of persons who maybe said, I dealt with this and I wasn't able to share it, or I'm so glad you spoke out because I didn't know what it was. Tell us about some of those, because we are blessed or we are healed so that we can share our testimony. really it's about giving, share that testimony so that people can, believe God and know that God works, but also that they can also receive the healing that they need, and get the information that they need. So tell us about some of those times when people would have approached you or maybe come into the salon and said, hey, I've been struggling with this, or I went through this as well. And, and you were able to, just minister in some way to another woman.
Yes. So when I was going through postpartum depression, as I said earlier, there was no face. There was no one that I could say, this person struggled with depression and survived. And for me, it was very, very important because I prayed. I mean, it was hard. I went down to the gates of hell, literally, and prayed for my sanity. And I told God that if you heal me, I would tell everybody. But I told him that I do not want any partial healing, that the healing had to be total. And I said it had to be just total healing, just as you restored Job. If you gave me that restoration, I will never be quiet about it. I will tell everybody about it. And that's what I'm doing. That's what I do. I am loud about it. I just want everybody to know that Jesus is a healer. I want it to be known that healing is not something of the past. It's not a old thing, and healing still happens. For me, one of the turning points added with counseling was I had two of my coworkers at the Four Seasons that worked with me at the time came up to me and said they struggled with postpartum depression and they were fine. You see, that was a turning point with me because as I looked at these ladies, they were normal. They were beautiful, they were well-dressed, they were married, they were taking care of their family and kids. And for me, that was the first time I was able to put a face on someone that had postpartum depression just like I did. Right. I remember going to the clinic and I was asked, tell me someone who have survived this. Tell me someone who went through this and lived and thrived. And they told me they couldn't give me the information. So for me, I couldn't have a face. But when someone I knew looking well told me that they survived it, I got a lot of strength from it. So the first time I was able to share my story, I heard that there was someone hospitalized, and I was able to track down their mom. And I said, I heard your daughter was going through postpartum depression. And I wanted to tell you that I had postpartum depression. But since that, I opened a salon, I went back to school, I'm raising my children, I am fine. I was able to tell her, love your child, support your child, and be there for your child. That lady hung her head for a little bit in the square, and she shed a little tear. And for me, that day, everything that I went through was worth it. Coming on this program, if one woman could hear my story and say, well, if she can do it, so can I, then I would do it 1,000 more times. And the first time I shared my story, I got messages in my inbox from women telling me they struggle with not only postpartum depression and anxiety, but just depression and anxiety in a whole. And they were glad that they were able to see me. They're asking me for tips, how to cope. And I was able to share some of the things that I learned during my journey about channeling your thoughts and changing your thoughts and replacing your thoughts and all of these kind of things and self-care. And for me, that is priceless. That is priceless. That's what I prayed for. I said, God, heal me so I can tell the world that you are a healer. And
amen. And now you are thriving.
Yes, I don't look at myself as a postpartum depression survivor. I call myself a postpartum depression thriver.
Wonderful, wonderful. So what else is next? What else do you want to do? What else I know you always have some goal or something you're striving for, because like you say, you become fearless. Because if you can you felt to the gates of hell and come back with, and thrive, then there isn't anything you cannot do. So what else? What are the dreams and aspirations you have for yourself?
Well, Pam, I have lots of dreams because I dream in color. I dream in color. And one of the dreams I have for myself is to one day have an event where I could do vision boards where people could also join me and dream in color. But the ultimate goal will be to have my own building and a really pretty, really, really nice salon where the service that I already give here at Oasis, where it's matched to none, I will be able to do it on a much grander scale. So that's the dream.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about your salon. Tell us the name, where you're located, the number, so in case anybody wants to come and visit and be treated like a queen and like royalty, they'll know where to go.
Yes. So the name of my salon is Oasis Nail. And the reason why I named it Oasis is because I wanted a place where you can go off of Charlestown, where you could leave from the hustle and bustle and just go to a beautiful environment. So I try my best to maintain it. It's a beautiful, beautiful space. Service is priceless. Appointments only. It's located in the Spring Gates building on Government Road. The number is 668-1081, and you'll need an appointment to come in. The best time to make an appointment will be as soon as you know you need an appointment, because through the grace of God, we stay really, really, really busy. And yeah, it's just a place for relaxation. We offer massages, facials, and manicures, pedicures. We do acrylics. It's a place where we just share. It's a place that I am open, I am open, and the entertainment is me. I hardly play music. I just tell about the goodness of the Lord all day long.
True. I'm your customer, and I can vouch for that.
Yes.
So as we begin to wrap up now, talk to us a little bit about your daughters now, the twins. How old are they? How are you coping now? You have 5 daughters, beautiful daughters. Talk to us about how you're balancing that now, how you are, anything that you would just like to say in terms of, women, because it's difficult. There are definitely challenges with raising 2, even raising 1 is a challenge. You have 5 daughters. And so you are the woman that they see. You are the model. You are the example that they will live by. So what are some of the things that you try to do to ensure that you model, the best that you possibly can for your daughters?
Wow. So my daughters are growing up nicely. My eldest just turned 17 yesterday, and to God be the glory. I remember when I was pregnant with her, and the years felt like they were so wide. Motherhood is fun for me. I mean, people always say to me that I don't look like I have 5 kids, and I said it's because I have 5 kids. It's because I have 5 kids. They keep me on my toes. They keep me checked. They're like, "Mommy, you're wearing that again. You wore that last week." So always they keep me checked. And I really, 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 really enjoy motherhood. Some of the only struggle I would say is balancing work and school for them, homework, and that kind of thing. But I hear the struggle of mothers that only have one. So I guess it's a struggle for all of us women. But I'm really enjoying motherhood. And when times get hard, I remember the days when I asked God for the opportunity to raise my daughters myself, and He gave them to me. So I just do it with a smile. Most people say they want to know what I'm like when I'm angry. They don't see me angry. They never see me angry. But you know what? It's hard to frown when you've been through so much, and God is so good. But my children, they are thriving. The twins, they are 5. I feel like I'm a better mom because I've gone through postpartum depression. I feel like I'm making up for the times that I couldn't spend with them that 2 years. So I just make up. I make up. I mean, one of the symptoms of postpartum depression was my memory. I mean, I couldn't remember how to use the microwave. I couldn't remember how to use the ATM. And I forgot a lot of important things, events that happened in my children's life during that time. And so, I'm there always trying to explain to them what I went through, and they're understanding and they're sweet. And I'm just trying to just make up. I make up everywhere I go. Even today, someone told me, you really try with your children. And I, 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 I don't feel like I need any trophy for that. I feel like that's what a mother is supposed to do. That's what my mom did with me. And yeah, so they are grown, they're doing well in school, they're brilliant, brilliant girls, much more brilliant than I am. They're beautiful, they love God. I just try to tell them in every situation, as difficult as it is, as long as you can say Jesus, it's gonna be fine.
Amen. Wonderful. So, if you had any other words of advice or even comfort to somebody out there who may be listening, who may be watching, and maybe they're fearful, maybe they don't want to share their story even with their closest family. I mean, you were able to, but that not everybody has the same situation that you had. What words of encouragement or comfort would you give to a mother out there who really is completely, is isolated, and just needs a lifeline?
Okay. So there's two things that that are held on to would have been my two favorite scriptures. One of them, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans of good and not of evil, plans to give you a hope and a future and an expected end. To hold on to that thought. The other scripture that I held on to was to cast down imagination and every high thing that exalted itself against the knowledge of Christ into the obedience of Christ. And with that, I just want you to know that God has a plan for you that you were thought of. The fact that He put those scriptures there for us, He knew that we'll need them and we would struggle. So that is what I would encourage you to hold on to. That would be the points that I would like you to hold on to from the scriptures. But then I want you to also find somebody that you could trust, someone that you can talk to. One of the things that I find is that we in the Caribbean, we bundle up our emotions, we bundle up our stories, we don't share our stories, and we don't tell our stories. So I would like you to not be afraid. You don't have to be like me and tell it to the world, but you have to find someone that you can trust. Another thing is, I don't know why we don't like going to therapy. It seems that for us, it's like if we go to therapy, it's like we don't trust God, or someone would say you're crazy because you're going to
Right.
a therapist.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
want to end the stigma about that. We need each other. I mean, our struggle is this, but everybody has their struggle. My mother said, who doesn't have it inside, have it outside. And there's no stones that could be thrown. I want to end the stigma. I mean, talk to somebody. That would be my encouragement. It doesn't have to be everybody, but you have to find somebody that you can talk to about it. I mean, and then you just seek help, and then you self-care. You love on yourself. Let me tell you, if you're feeling sad, you put on some red lipstick, it is impossible for you to still feel so sad when you catch a glimpse of yourself in the mirror. I remember there were days when I wore red lipstick because I was feeling so broken inside, and I call those my red lipstick days, the days that I faked it until I make it. These days I hardly wear color on my face because I don't need to fake anything. I just want to say that there
Beautiful.
is hope, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. Talk to someone, be encouraged. You're not alone. You can live, you can strive. There is healing, is a bright future that awaits.
Amen.
Very beautiful.
Thank you, Labriska. That was so beautiful. I know that somebody who's listened, heard your story, has been changed on the inside, and it's just a matter of time for it to take full manifestation in their life and to be seen on the outside, and for it to be their reality like it's now your reality.
Yeah.
Bless you. Thank you so much for being our guest on My Story talk show today. I know you tell your story with such joy because you now are filled with light, filled with joy. I see you radiating as you share because you are filled with joy from the inside out. So we thank you for sharing today. Continue to strive, continue to thrive. You are an amazing example, and we thank you and bless you.
Thank you, Pam. It was a pleasure to be here. I just hope that my story touches somebody, and if it's just one, then it would have been worth it.
So we thank you for watching My Story talk show this afternoon. Thank you for joining us again. And just before we go, I would just like to share a little bit of information about a couple of things that are taking place very shortly that I know will be a blessing. So we have Esther J. Thomas, who is having a book tour, book launch. Starts off on the 30th of June, and it's called Ascend, and it kicks off on the 30th of June in St. Kitts, and it's going to be at OJ, let me see here. It's going to be at OJ's complex in Camps on the 2nd floor, and it starts at 7:15 p.m. Seated by 7:15, starts at 7:30, and she's going to have some incredible speakers. She has Chris Ann Ambrose, who was, if you watched the program last week, you would have seen her. Pastor Boris Johnson and Pastor Jeremy Thomas. And you know, Esther has written this book and she's doing a tour around the Caribbean. It's going to be a huge blessing. She's a very, very inspirational person, and I know you're going to be greatly blessed. And then on the 1st of July, she comes over to Queen City, Nevis, and she continues her tour. And her guest again, she will have Chris Ann Ambrose and Claricia Bell. Again, it's going to be 7:30, seated by 7:15, 7:30 p.m. at the Ignite, which is the old cinema building. Tickets are available online if you go to www.estherjthomas.com, or you can call 869-660-6849 or 869-661-2817. And that's Ascend with Esther J. Thomas. So I just want to say thank you all for watching My Story talk show this afternoon with Miss Labriska Phillip. It's been a blessing, Labriska. Thank you again to Michelle L. Forbes for inviting me to be the guest host this week. It's been a pleasure and an honor, and I am blessed beyond measure to see beautiful Labriska and sharing her story today. Tune in again next week. Well, there'll be another guest host as we continue the Mother's Special Focus for the month of May. Have a great afternoon and God bless.